Welcome to MacGyver's Workshop, where you never know what we're going to be working on next. If you're not too careful, you just might learn something. Hi there, and welcome to MacGyver's Workshop, where you never know what we're going to be working on next, and if you're not too careful, you just might learn something. So in this video, we're going to be working on a friend of mine's 1981 Jeep Scrambler CJ8. And it's pretty badass. It's got a 1989 Tuneport 350 out of a Corvette, and I know Jeeps, and every one of them I've ever seen has had a straight six in it. And he fires this thing up and rolls it in, and I'm like, wait, that's different. So anyhow, belongs to a friend of mine, Roger Kirby. Come on in here and say hi to the...
Hi, folks.
Howdy. And he's going to be helping out today, and we're going to put a new set of leaf springs all the way around on this. And this is kind of deja vu for me, because I did a CJ something or another. It was like a 74 that had an old 304 in it. So I kind of got a leg up on this because I've already done it. And it was a Yankee Jeep. So basically we did the whole thing with a torch, but this one is not so bad. So, he's like, oh, it's going to be tough, it's all right, don't worry. And I'm like, don't worry about it. Forget about it. So let's get started. So we're going to tag team this. What Roger's going to do, he's going to start busting the tires loose on this thing. We don't technically have to take the tires off, but it'll make it easier, better for filming. And while he's busting all the lug nuts loose on all four wheels, in the meantime I'll be taking some stuff loose here and getting stuff set up. So let's get rocking, brother.
Let's get rocking.
You ever
We'll start.
you ever use one of these? Go ahead, zip it. Easy. All right.
Okay. Ready?
Yep. Boy, they come off a whole lot easier that way, don't they?
Yeah.
So now I got my steering damper off of there, and I'm not going to worry about the pitman arm just yet. But what I am going to do is I am going to get these, we'll get the U-bolts loose, and I'll tell you what you can do there, Roger.
Okay.
Get your 3/4, get them shock bolts off, and we may need to use a wrench for those, but you can get the top ones. So you go get the bottom ones. I'll get the ones we can get with the guns. Hey, Raj. Let me offer you some assistance here.
I know all the names because we're going to bring it too.
Yep. See, what he was using over there was, please come off. Okay. This is, I'm done asking.
You're coming now. There you go.
Meanwhile, up front here, I ain't fighting with these U-bolts. So what we're going to do is we are going to break bad with the fire wrench. This is the fire wrench. All right, watch your toes. Going hot. Now we're going to let all the little nubbies cool down before we go messing with them, which is a good time for a break in the video. What we've got now, while we were off camera, I went ahead and got the jack jigged up under the front differential here. We've got it propped up. It's a little heavy to this side, so we've got it strapped down so it doesn't just try and tip this way. But right now, we just have it raised up a little bit off the leaf springs, and they're all hanging free now. So all we've got to do now is punch out our bolts, and our leaf springs will drop out, and then we can prep our new leaf springs and get them ready to pop in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this here. All right, you can go ahead, and I'm just going to punch these things out with my punch here. Don't worry about that. And then they're going to fall down like so. Now this is going to be pretty exciting because when I punch this thing out, it's going to fall down and hit the floor and bounce and all that kind of stuff. Now I need to let everybody on camera here know that this never happens, okay? These bolts never come out this easy, okay? This has been done before, and this is no longer a Yankee vehicle. That's the only reason these bolts are coming out this easy. Otherwise, we'd be cutting them out. And those of you who know what I'm talking about. All right, it's hanging in there by itself. Ain't that great? So I expected it to fall down and hit the deck and make a bunch of noise, but all right. All right, now we'll go over to the other side and pop the other one out. Now this one should probably just slide out fairly easily, I would think, if we're lucky. Yep. That's not so bad, is it? And this bolt wasn't so bad. I think this one would probably come right on out of there. Yep. Oh yeah. Yep. That's a problem when the good Lord puts your butt too far from the ground. All right, so see, our differential is supported there all nice and pretty. So now what we got to do is we have to prep all our bushings and everything in the new springs and get them ready to be for the new springs to be installed in place. I know some people might argue with me, but when you're talking about poly bushings, they tell you to put poly or a silicone lube in there. I like using just a regular old brake caliper grease, and it's a moly grease. It's very good, and as far as I know, the last Jeep that I did like 6 or 8 years ago, they're still not squeaking yet, so we're good. You want to lube this baby up good.
See, I'm learning. I would have never done it if I did it by myself. I would never thought of putting that stuff on.
Oh man, you'd be squeaking like an old Amish buggy, man. The poly bushings they're notorious for that. course, they're also notorious for an insanely harsh ride, but, you know, still.
Now, my brother has a Scrambler also.
Uh-huh.
He's got these same springs. They're called the Super Lift Soft Ride.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the best riding Jeep I've ever rode in my life. You think you could cut a diamond sitting in it.
Wow.
Down the road.
And we got these things spooged up nice and pretty. Now, the thing to remember on this Jeep is you've got, you know, you have one big fat eye and one skinny eye on all four springs. But on the front leaf springs on this one, okay, you've got a wide lip on the bushings. The rear springs have a skinny lip. So we have to remember that. Of course, we knew that already, didn't we?
Sure.
Sure, yeah. That's our story and we're sticking to it, see?
There you go.
We didn't have to stop the cameras and go online and figure that out. We will go ahead and goober these eyes up real good. We have shorter bushings and taller bushings. On the front springs, the short bushings are used because the front spring is narrower than the back. Look at that.
Put down.
And we're going to go ahead and put the spring in. And I'll start from the rear shackle, and then we'll just bring it up underneath here and attach it to the front. Not much to it, really. And you don't want to tighten any of these shackle bolts until you get the vehicle down on the ground at rest. Otherwise, you'll have the bushings will be loaded, and that'll wear them out quicker. All we'll do is we'll bring this up over like so, and then bring this over thusly. Squeaky bushings, no good. All right. All right, now we can set our differential down. And let our strap loose. Want to make sure it lines up on its alignment pins here. That's very important. Like that. And we can drop our jack down. And get it out of the way. All right, so our springs are hung in there nice. Now it's time to get ready and get set up for our U-bolts. So now we're going to start with our U-bolts here. We're going to get them mounted on there. We've got our differential axle seated into the pins on the leaf springs properly. Our shackle bolts are installed but not tightened. We won't tighten those until we set the car back down on the ground and have the suspension at rest, because if you don't, then you'll get a false set, according to the instructions, you'll get a false lift and a really super stiff ride. So you want to make sure that the spring is set where it's going to normally set before you tighten these bolts up. Now, on this axle here, we have one unique U-bolt. It's a little bigger than the rest because it sits against the side of the differential housing here. As you can see, this one U-bolt is a bit wider than the other, and that one goes here. One other thing you'll notice is the difference. Even though the width of the U-bolts are the same for the other U-bolts, with the exception of this one set's going to be slightly longer than the other, and the longer ones are going to be for the rear axle. So we'll use the shorter ones for the front. All right, we'll mount our axle plate here. Get that situated in here. And one of the things that they mention in the kit is that if your Jeep originally had the skinnier axle U-bolts, that you might have to drill those holes out. Now, this one had already had larger U-bolts put in, so we didn't have to worry about that on this one, so we're good. And then according to the kit, the U-bolts that come with this particular kit specify a torque of 80 foot-pounds. And we will have him come back after about 500 miles and we will recheck that torque. Get our other U-bolts and plates set in here. Make sure you have your shock bolts or studs facing out the correct direction. And you want to make sure that you draw these up nice and even. I mean, you don't want this much bolt sticking out of one side and then barely any sticking out of the other. Now we'll go back over these with a torque wrench. Make sure they're at least 80 foot-pounds, which doesn't seem like a lot, but it's sufficient because you don't want to bend the axle, dimple the axle housings. All right, that one's in like Flint, as they say. All righty. That is good. We are good there. I guess we'll go ahead and mount our shock absorbers back up, put our steering damper back in, and then we'll go after that pitman arm. What do you think? All right, let's get some shock absorbers on this bad boy. On this side, you'll find that you'll want to put the bottom shock bolt in first, and then roll it in to get to the top one, because of the spindle being in the way. Do the top ones with the impact, and the bottom ones will have to do with a wrench. They're a bit tough to get to. All right, now all we got to do is the pitman arm, and the front end will be pretty much done. This supposedly already had a 4-inch lift spring set on it, but they never apparently put the drop pitman arm on it. Imagine that would have caused some bump steer. Possibly. I'm taking the cotter pin out of the pitman arm here. 1 3/4. Yep. Obviously, we don't want to damage the tie rod, so we'll just give her a good smack here. Edge. There we go. Now, what we'll use to get this pitman arm off without a bunch of headache is a pitman arm puller. And what that does is that grabs the pitman arm, and then there's a little dimple in the end of the shaft right here that this bolt goes up into, and then we'll just run that bolt up in there until that pitman arm pops off. Sometimes it'll come off with a surprising bang, and then sometimes it don't. We'll see. Sometimes if it wants to rotate like that, maybe I'll hold it with a wrench, keep it rotating, and then every now and then give it a smack with a hammer. Maybe loosen it up just a smidge. But I think we're okay. There we go. That made a potentially traumatic event a non-issue. How about that? A fairly common occurrence is that the washers will shatter. So we'll have to either find one in my bolt bin, or we'll have to go get one. Okay, so now I got my new washer in here and got my nut on here. We're going to run this joker up, and just about tight as crap and then some. Is what you want on there, and that'll do for that. And then on your drag link here, you'll want to always use a new cotter pin when you're putting your nut back on here. It's always a good idea if you can do it. I keep an assortment box on the shelf, so I always have one handy. That drop pitman arm, when you go raising the suspension on these things, it just puts this center link, or not center link, it's a tie rod, I guess, or drag link, however you want to call it. It just puts it at a better angle, and that way you don't get bump steer when you hit a bump on one side. It's just a whole lot better. Interesting thing, this nut holds this tie rod on. They call it a castle nut because the top of the nut that has the slots for the cotter pin to go through looks like the top tower of a castle, with the parapets or whatever you want to call on it. Pretty neat. A little bit of useless trivia for you there. And you never back a nut off to line a slot up. You always take it a little further and tighten it up. There, that's done. Okay, so with the exception of tightening the shackle bolts up, our front end's done. So now let's move to the back and do the back springs.